Here is a number nobody calculates. Over a playing life, the average bassist spends more money on strings than on the bass itself. $25 to $50 a set, a few sets a year, 30 years, do the math, and quietly close the calculator. And here is the uncomfortable part. Most of that money is spent wrong, in both directions at once. Half of us change strings out of habit, on a schedule a marketing department invented, throwing away metal with months of life left in it. The other half plays strings so far past their death that the bass has stopped telling the truth. Intonation drifting, notes thumping instead of singing, and the player blaming the instrument, the amp, or themselves. Today we fix both halves. The 7 string mistakes almost every bass player makes, the honest physics behind each one, the free test that tells you whether your strings are actually dead or just unfashionable, and at the end, the complete honest string map. What to actually buy for which sound, with names and street prices from $20 to buy once keep a decade. Here is the plan. First, 90 seconds on what a bass string actually is, because the entire trap economy lives in the gap between how simple this product is and how complicated it sounds in advertising. Then the 7 mistakes, from the monthly change habit to the gauge machismo, each with the fix built in. Then the dead string test, which costs nothing and settles arguments. And then the map. Round wounds, flat wounds, coated, tape wound, who they are for, which specific sets have earned their reputation over decades, and where the budget options are genuinely fine versus where cheap becomes expensive. Stay with me for mistake number 2 especially, because it is the one where the internet has it exactly backwards. And fixing it is the closest thing to free tone the bass world offers. And keep an ear out for the Motown secret in the string map, because the most recorded bass sound in history was made on strings most modern players would have thrown in the bin. A quick, honest note before we start. No string company paid for this video, nobody sent us free sets, and the links below are plain product links, no affiliate games, no markup. Every price is a street price you can check in 30 seconds. And because buying right is a method, not a list, the complete buyer's guide, every goldmine and money trap from this channel as one honest map, is linked in the description. Now let's get into it. First, the 90 seconds of honest physics. A bass string is a steel core wire with another wire wrapped around it, thousands of tight turns from end to end. That is the whole product. If the wrap wire is round, you get a round wound. The surface has tiny ridges. Those ridges create the bright, complex, harmonically rich modern sound. And they also collect everything your fingers deliver: sweat, skin, oil, dirt. That collection is what kills a round wound. The grooves fill up, the string gets heavier and less flexible in microscopic ways, and the sparkle dies. If the wrap wire is flattened, you get a flat wound. Smooth surface, nothing to fill up, less high-end from day one, a warm, deep, fundamental, heavy thump, and a lifespan measured in years, sometimes decades. Everything else on the market, coated strings, tape wounds, half rounds, is a variation on this one decision. What does the wrap look like, and what does that do to brightness, feel, and lifespan? 4 variables matter when you buy. Winding type, gauge, meaning thickness, scale length, meaning does it physically fit your bass, and material. Price, brand romance, and the word tone printed in italics are not on that list. Mistake number 1, changing strings on a schedule. The habit usually starts with a well-meaning rule: fresh strings every month or before every important gig. And it survives because fresh round wounds genuinely feel like an event, bright, loud, piano-like. But here is the honest accounting. That zing you love lives for perhaps a week, then the string settles into its actual working sound, where it stays for months. If you change monthly, you are paying full price over and over for 7 days of sparkle. You could also dial in with a treble knob and throwing away metal with months of honest life remaining. The fix is embarrassing in its simplicity. Change strings when the bass tells you to, not when the calendar does. And how does the bass tell you? That is the test later in this video. Some session players with very bright signature sounds genuinely need weekly changes. They are also not paying for their own strings. You are. Mistake number 2, the one the internet has backwards: throwing away strings that are just getting good. This mostly concerns flatwounds and everyone chasing warm, vintage, soulful sounds with roundwounds. Roundwounds lose their zing, and the forums call them dead. But that middle-aged roundwound sound, mids forward, even controlled, is exactly the sound on more classic records than anyone can count. And flat wounds do not even have the excuse. A flat wound gets warmer, deeper, and more even for years. And the players who know, the studio veterans, guard decade-old flats like vintage wine. The most famous example in history, the Motown records, the deepest, most influential bass sound ever recorded, played on flat wound strings that were, by modern forum standards, long dead, and their owner reportedly refused to change them, on the theory that the funk lived in the dirt. The fix: before you declare strings dead, ask dead for what? Too dull for slap pop is perfectly seasoned for soul, reggae, Motown, and half of all studio work. Old strings are not a defect. They are a specific sound, and you already paid for it. Mistake number 3. Gauge machismo. Somewhere along the line, heavier string gauges became a masculinity contest. Real bassists play heavy strings. Light gauges are for beginners. Thicker equals more tone. The physics is less flattering. Heavier gauge means more tension, more finger force for every note, more strain on your fretting hand over a 3-hour rehearsal, and a stiffer feel that fights fast playing. What it gives you: slightly more fundamental, slightly tighter low end, especially in drop tunings, and slightly more volume acoustically, a difference your amp erases with one knob. For standard tuning, a regular light set, typically 45 to 105, is the industry default because it is the honest optimum for most hands and most music. Going heavier is a legitimate specialist choice for down-tuned metal. Going lighter is a legitimate comfort choice your audience will never, ever hear. The fix: choose gauge with your hands, not your ego. Your tendons vote too, and their vote is final, sometimes permanently. Mistake number 4, the boiling myth in its modern cousins. Every few years, the tip resurfaces: boil your dead round wounds in water or soak them in alcohol, and they come back to life. Partially true briefly. Boiling loosens some of the gunk in the grooves, and for a day or two, the strings sound noticeably fresher. Then the loosened grime resettles, the metal fatigue that boiling cannot reverse remains, and you are back where you started, having spent an evening making instrument soup. If you enjoy the ritual and your budget is tight, alcohol soaking is the version that actually works best, and there is no shame in it. But understand what you are buying: a few days of extension, not resurrection. The fix at the root: wipe your strings with a dry cloth after every session, 30 seconds, and wash your hands before playing, 10 seconds. Those 2 free habits extend round wound life more than any afterlife ritual because they stop the grooves filling up in the first place. Mistake number 5, doing the coated string math wrong in either direction. Coated strings, the famous ones, come from Elixir. Wrap the wound string in a microscopically thin polymer layer that keeps the gunk out of the grooves. They cost roughly double to triple a standard set, and the marketing says they last 3 to 5 times longer. Here is the honest math. For players whose hands corrode strings quickly, sweaty players, daily players, gigging players, the math genuinely works. Double the price for triple. The life is a discount, and the consistent sound week over week is its own gift. But 2 groups keep getting this wrong. Beginners buy coated strings on a bass they play twice a week, paying triple to protect strings their usage would never have killed. And flat wound lovers buy coated round wounds chasing longevity, when the instrument they actually wanted was a $30 set of flats that lasts a decade by construction, no polymer required. The fix: coated strings are a specialist tool for people who murder round wounds quickly and need the zing. If that is not precisely you, the standard set or the flat wound is the honest buy. Mistake number 6, paying the brand tax and its evil twin, trusting the no-name gamble. The great open secret of the string industry: there are only a handful of real string factories in the world and a long parade of brands. Several famous names and several house brands come off neighboring machines with different silk wraps and very different price tags. When a respected retailer house brand costs $12 and a boutique branded set costs $35, the difference is sometimes real recipe and sometimes real marketing, and the spec sheet, gauge, material, winding, construction tells you which. But the trap has a second jaw. The $5 no-name set from the far end of the internet is a different product entirely. Inconsistent winding tension, dead spots out of the packet, cores that snap at the tuning post. Strings are precision products. $5 does not buy precision, but $35 does not buy triple the precision of 12 either. The fix. Buy established mid-price names or reputable house brands. Check the actual specs and treat both the luxury tier and the mystery tier with the same polite suspicion. And mistake number 7, buying strings that physically do not fit. The least glamorous mistake and the most expensive per incident. Bass strings come in scale lengths, short, medium, long, extra long, and the measurement that matters is not your bass's advertised scale, but the distance the string actually travels, especially on basses that string through the body, which need noticeably longer strings than the same scale strung at the bridge. Buy short scale strings for a long scale bass, and they simply do not reach. Buy standard long scale for a through body bass, and the thick taper ends up sitting over the nut, killing tone and stability. Every string maker publishes a fitting guide, and the used listings of the world are full of once-open wrong scale sets sold at half price by people who skipped it. The fix takes 90 seconds. Measure from ball end seat to nut, at a hand's width, check the maker's chart. Boring, free, and it prevents the single most common string purchase that goes directly in the drawer. Now the test I promised, how to know if strings are actually dead. In 1 minute, for free, 3 checks. Check 1, the harmonic. Play the harmonic at the 12th fret, the gentle touch chime, then fret and play the same note normally. On living strings, both ring clearly and agree on pitch. On dead round wounds, the harmonic comes out weak, dull, or barely there. The overtones are gone. That is what dead actually means. Check 2, the tuner. Fresh tuned open string, then check the fretted 12th fret against the tuner. Drifting noticeably sharp or flat up the neck when your intonation was previously set. The string mass has changed. The gunk and fatigue have made it dishonest, and no setup can fix a lying string. Check 3, the wipe. Run a clean white cloth firmly along the string. If it comes away gray-black, the grooves are full, and you at least know where the brightness went. 2 of 3 failed. The strings are dead as a matter of physics, not fashion, and changing them will genuinely change your sound. All 3 passed. Your strings are alive, and whatever you were about to spend on new ones is available for the swear jar. And now the honest string map with names and prices by the sound you actually want. If you want the modern all-rounder, bright but civilized, the default answer is a standard nickel Roundwound set. The industry workhorse, $20 to $25. The DAddario XL line and the GHS boomers have been the session standard for decades, precisely because they are consistent, honest, and everywhere. Buy either, buy several sets on sale, and you have solved strings for a year. If you want maximum zing for slap, steel round wounds bite harder than nickel and cost about the same, with the honest warning that they also chew frets and fingertips faster. If your hands murder strings and you need the brightness to survive, that is the one honest home of the coated set, roughly $40 to $55, where the triple lifespan genuinely earns the double price. If you want the deep, warm, thumping heart of soul, reggae, blues, and 60 years of records, a quality Flatwound set, $35 to $55, from the La Bella Deep Talkin' line, the classic Motown recipe, to the Fender and DAddario chromes, is the single best value in the entire string world, because you buy it once and it improves for a decade. On a per-year basis, the most expensive flats are the cheapest strings money buys. And if you want something quieter and softer under the fingers, for living room hours, fretless or upright adjacent sounds, black nylon tapewounds around $40 to $60 are the overlooked corner of the map. Gentle on hands, gentle on frets, huge and dark and surprisingly modern sounding, and yet another set that essentially never dies. That is the whole map. Notice what is not on it. Anything above $60, anything sold on Mojo, and anything without published specs. One more thing before the verdict. The 10-year money table, because habits hide their price until you multiply them. The monthly changer, $25 a set, 12 sets a year, $300 annually, $3,000 a decade, on strings, most of it spent replacing metal that was perfectly alive. The test-based changer, same round wounds, change when the harmonic actually dies, typically 3 or 4 sets a year, about $90 annually, $900 a decade, same sound on stage, $2,000 kept. The Flatwound player, one $50 set, installed once, improving for 10 years, $5 a year, and the sound gets closer to the records with every birthday. And the Tapewound homebody sits in the same club. That table is the entire video in 4 numbers, and it is why string habits matter more than string brands. And since fresh strings will eventually happen to everyone, the 90-second ritual that makes them behave. Install with 2 to 3 neat wraps down the tuning post so the string locks itself, then stretch each string firmly, pull it gently away from the fingerboard along its length, retune, and repeat until the tuning stops drifting. 5 minutes that replace 3 days of the bass mysteriously going flat. Then wipe them after every session from day 1, because the cheapest string maintenance program in history is a dry cloth that never lets the funeral start. Before we wrap up, the 3 questions, string edition. Question 1, can you hear the problem? Run the 1-minute test. If your strings pass, the sound you are chasing is hiding in your EQ, your technique, or your pickup height, all cheaper than a string set. Question 2, real fault or sold feeling. A string that fails the harmonic test is a fault. The itch for that first week zing is a feeling, and a treble boost imitates it for free. Question 3, have you done the cheap things first? A dry cloth after playing in clean hands before it will save you more string money over a decade than any brand decision you will ever make. So here is the honest verdict. Strings are the most repeated purchase in a bassist's life, which is exactly why the mistakes compound. A wrong habit costs you every single year, forever. The physics is simple: wrap type, gauge, scale, material. The market noise is loud and the fix is quiet. Buy the construction that matches the sound in your head, in the gauge your hands can afford, in the scale that physically fits, from the established mid-price shelf, and then stop, because past that point, every additional dollar buys marketing, not music. Change round wounds when the test says so. Let flat wounds grow old with you. And remember the Motown lesson. Some of the greatest bass sounds ever recorded were made on strings the internet would call garbage. The sound was never in the freshness. It was in the fingers, and those you already own. Tell me in the comments, how old are the strings on your main bass right now, honestly? And are they alive by the test, or are you, like most of us, playing a bass that has been quietly lying to you for months? Oldest verified strings in the comments section gets my genuine respect. Flatwound veterans, this is your moment. Everything is linked in the description, including the buyer's guide with the complete map of gold mines and money traps. Subscribe for honest, no-hype truth about bass gear, and I would be genuinely glad to have you along for the ride.